Steve.
Yeah, we can hear you, Steve. We're just getting everything turned on. Mic's on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't remember which way my button was supposed to be.
All right, good evening, everybody. For the record, Thursday, November 12th, 2020, time for the regular meeting of the Wenatchee City Council. As always, we start with a pledge to our flag. So, Councilmember Harold, would you lead us?
Yes, I'd be honored. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Harold. For the record tonight, we have 6 council members present, and Councilmember Esparza is on vacation today. So our first item on the agenda are consent items, which includes approval of this evening's agenda, vouchers, minutes from the previous meetings, and a couple of small contracts. So I would entertain a motion if we had one.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the agenda, vouchers, and minutes from the previous meetings. I also make a motion for the City Council to accept the work performed by the contractor Golden Gate Electric on City Project number 1915, Miller School Zone and Okanagan Crossing improvements, and further authorize the mayor to sign the final contract voucher. I also make a motion for the City Council to accept the work performed by the contractor KRCI LLC on City Project number SW19-08, Elliott Avenue Multi-Use Pathway, and further authorize the mayor to sign the final contract voucher.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Bailey to adopt this evening's consent items, including the agenda, vouchers, and the minutes from our previous meetings. Also authorize the work performed by the contractor Golden Gate Electric on City Project number 1915, the Miller School Zone and Okanagan Crossing improvements, and further authorize the mayor to sign the final contract voucher, and to accept the work performed by the contractor KRCI LLC on City Project SW19-08, Elliott Avenue Multi-Use Pathway, and further authorize the mayor to sign the final contract voucher. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Presentations, we have one, Small Business Saturday. Who has that?
That would be me, Your Honor.
All right. Councilmember Hornby, would you read that into the record, please?
Proclamation Small Business Saturday for November 28th, 2020. Whereas the City of Wenatchee celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. According to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 30.7 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99.7% of all firms with paid employees in the United States, are responsible for 64.9% of net new jobs created from 2000 to 2018. And whereas small businesses employ 47.3% of employees in the private sector in the United States, 62% of U.S. small businesses reported that they need to see consumer spending return to pre-COVID levels by the end of 2020 in order to stay in business. 65% of U.S. small business owners said it would be most helpful to their businesses to have their regulars return and start making purchases again. And 3/4 of the U.S. Consumers are currently looking for ways to shop small and support their community. And whereas 96% of consumers who shopped on Small Business Saturday agreed that shopping at small independently owned businesses supports their commitment to making purchases that have a positive social, economic, environmental impact. And 97% of consumers who shopped on Small Business Saturdays agreed that small businesses are essential to their communities. And whereas 95% of consumers who shopped on Small Business Saturday reported the day makes them want to shop or eat at small, independently owned businesses all year long, not just during the holiday season. And whereas the City of Wenatchee supports our local small businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. And whereas advocacy groups as well as public and private organizations across the country have endorsed Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, I, Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Wenatchee, Washington, do hereby proclaim November 28th, 2020 as Small Business Saturday and encourage the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. I witness, therefore, I have caused the seal of Wenatchee, the City of Wenatchee, to be affixed on this 12th day of November 2020. Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Hornby. We'll get that down to Linda Hagland. On that Saturday, I will be attempting to wrap presents someplace, wherever Linda Hagland tells me I'm supposed to be. Chrissy will be there, and she wraps way better than I do, so if you really want to get a professional wrapping job, come find us on Saturday, the 28th. And I'm not sure, she said someplace, they're going to have a separate something down there for me, so anyhow. Yeah, support our local businesses, though they need it this year more than ever.
Indeed.
All right, we have a number of action items this evening and then one public hearing regarding the adoption of the 2021 budget. So we'll start with our action items. I see Brooklyn is here to talk about the Consolidated Community Development Block Grant. Brooklyn and Glenn.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm a little excited because I've never gotten to go first before, so sorry if I talk fast. I'll try and slow down. So thank you for fitting us in. We're hoping to take up a work session, so we're going to try and condense that into this regular meeting.
Okay.
This is the third time that we've been able to meet with you guys around the CDBG Consolidated Plan, and the first one we went through kind of a big picture overall around CDBG, what we've done with our past consolidated plan and what we have the potential to do going forward. So that's kind of a big meeting. After that meeting, we came back and talked to you guys about more specific funding options and what to kind of look for, anticipate some new ideas for this specific consolidated plan and looking into 2020. So this third one is to really look at what can we do in the immediate and how can we kind of move forward to work with our advisory group and really get the draft plan developed. So just a little refresher, we haven't seen you for this since April. We're an entitlement community, so every year we receive funding based on a formula that is done by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and every 5 years we do this consolidated plan. This one is different. You'll see that it says 2013 to 2019. We extended it to align with the plan of East Wenatchee so that we're all on the same timeline. And then we have our high-level consolidated plan, and every year we do an annual action plan, and that's where the specific projects, the funding gets allocated, and implementation is done. So tonight we're going to be looking at more of that high level, and then the goals and priorities. So the goals and priorities that we've used in our last consolidated plan were around reducing housing cost burdens, preserving and improving neighborhoods, reducing homelessness, which we kind of tied that into our work with Sandra and Oliver with the plan to end homelessness, and then supporting public services and develop economic opportunity. So with that background, so I kind of already talked about the previous meetings. One of the reasons that there has been quite a span between our last meeting, due to COVID, HUD put out a waiver that allowed agencies to extend the submission date of their consolidated plan to better respond to COVID, and then make sure that their thought through their consolidated plan and annual action plan was complete. So normally this would have been submitted on August 16th, but during that time we were responding to COVID and allocating our COVID funding. And so today we're going to be looking at what we were hoping to have completed in May, the priority activities, and moving forward with our consolidated plan. So just kind of some information. So activities and projects are different terms used in CDBG. So activities are high level. They're broad categories that kind of umbrella different projects, and projects are the implementation. So for example, public facilities and improvements would be an activity. A specific, like Chelan Avenue sidewalks, that would be a project. So when I say activities versus projects, I'm talking about high level for activities and low level implementation for projects. The consolidated plan focuses on identification of activities. The annual action plan that we do each year focuses on projects. So this year, for the consolidated plan, at high level, we're recommending the following categories. These are the categories that were used in the most recent CDBG one, the 2013 to 2019. Admin, public facilities and improvements, public services. Public services have been the Literacy Council, and then a small amount supporting our code enforcement. Code enforcement is its own activity, and then housing rehabilitation, which we actually discontinued just after 2010. So we haven't been doing that one for about a decade. So the recommended activity categories that we would be looking at with our advisory group, which will start at the first week in December for the first meeting. The first one would be programmatic. And administration, planning, and capacity building would fall under programmatic. We had talked about NERSA, which is a neighborhood revitalization strategy area, which actually allows us to have more flexible CDBG requirements on our funding if we have that established. Establishing that area or those focused pocket areas of our community would fall under programmatic. Public services would include if we wanted to continue funding the Literacy Council, if we wanted to look at other things to support like a low barrier shelter, or any other service that could look like operations to serve vulnerable communities could fall under public services. Public facilities and improvements. We've done ADA improvements to city buildings. That would fall under this. Any sidewalk projects would fall under this if we did any ADA or multi-use paths, things like that, or any like transportation or facilities for like supporting public transit that could fall under this. Parks, yep, thank you. Yeah, see, that's why we do this together. Yes, parks, absolutely. And then housing, so we have done rehab before. East Wenatchee often does their down payment assistance. This can also help support development with infrastructure to go toward common areas, either support ADA or low-income housing. And then economic development, an example of this is the program that we used in response to COVID, where we helped support micro enterprises for their stabilization in response to COVID. Other options would just be workforce development or even facade improvements in kind of lower income commercial areas. So these are the recommendations that we have for our activities. You'll notice that they are quite a bit more, also under housing, code enforcement would fall under that. Okay. So these are quite a bit more broad. We're doing that intentionally because we've been able to kind of explore some new projects, which is really that implementation level, and being able to have that broader activity will help that. So some activities are housing/rehab, housing/down payment assistance, housing/. Instead of getting that specific and being more housing, then at the project level, we can have more flexibility when we go into that annual action plan every year.
Tried to take what we heard in the first two sessions from the council, that you like some of the activities that we are historically doing, but that you liked also some of the options that David Stahlheim has helped and Brooklyn has helped provide and discuss. So yeah. By being broader, it gives the council a wide range of tools and things that we do on an annual basis.
Yeah. So the next slide is just kind of looking at next steps. So I'll pause right here and see. I know there are a couple questions and kind of allow for discussions. Today, we really want to take away any feedback on these recommended activities. Our timeline for implementation is between now and hopefully the end of March for adoption. So we're looking at in that next couple months really getting the plan completed.
So, these will set the sort of the broad framework for an outline with these categories, and then through the stakeholder group, which we're hoping to get 1 or 2 council members to participate if you're interested. Love to have you. You can help provide some goals and objectives, which can provide assistance on an annual basis for more targeted provisions, and then general provisions under these categories. But again, this is a broad blueprint. We try to take what you heard and provide options for you on an annual basis. The next step would be to develop the plan.
Okay.
We'll have a data, we'll have goals and objectives. In actuality, in the process, if the stakeholders, planning commission, and council find that something's not in there, you still have the ability to add it. We think this is really broad, though, and encompassing.
So would there be specific projects associated with, say, public facilities and improvements, or would you say sidewalks and other public facilities in the CDBG area? I mean, how specific are you going to get with those sorts of?
Yeah, at the comp plan level, we'd like to keep our goals maybe around 3 goals, maybe 4, and pretty broad, so that the project level is where we really get specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, certainly you could talk about, mobility in neighborhoods and linkages. I mean, you can get there.
It's the narrative.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? I mean, I think it sort of hits what we talked about last time. Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I had it in going through the document here earlier today. A couple of questions. When you talk about the micro enterprise category, I assume that falls under economic development, or is that where that would fall?
Lost it. Got our budget document up.
It's saved on the desktop, so I can reopen. Oh, okay, thanks. Sorry. Please go ahead.
Yeah, the micro enterprise, I guess it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in dealing with this over the last however many years, it doesn't seem like we've done a lot with the economic development
That's correct.
side of it. And so the micro enterprise thing or micro enterprise kind of intrigued me, I guess, thinking about that. And so would something like, and I guess, we've had a bit of conversation, I don't know how far that's gone within Public Works or whatever, or, Your Honor and your team, but what was it, down on the bottom of Bridge Street, putting in, having
Yep, little place for the taco
Cultural
trucks.
taco
and-
trucks,
Yeah, little foods.
Yeah.
Yep.
food kind of thing.
Yep.
So, so would spending some money to put in the infrastructure and put in a pad down there for truck, food trucks, would something like that fall into that?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah. and-
So I guess I'm, I'm not, I mean, there's other things you could obviously say are a lot more pressing, but we spent quite a few years funneling money into these pretty specific areas. And I guess in reading this again, and maybe I wasn't paying attention last
No,
time.
I would say that you
But,
interpreted that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess I just kind of feel like maybe we need to expand our horizons a little bit here in there. I mean, particularly like coming off of COVID and that kind of thing, there might be a lot of opportunity to really enhance the economic development side of this.
Yeah, so COVID actually, in terms of this process, helped move us along in economic development faster than we probably would have if we just chose it to be a category, because it forced us to get some systems in place pretty quickly. And so the port's been really helpful. The business support that we provided was around $80,000 at the end of it. That was specific to micro enterprises. So we have a system kind of set up now where we are able to, we have an application, we're able to verify, we have that structure. And the cultural district actually was a part of the motivation for looking more into economic development, because it stemmed from that South Wenatchee Action Plan And the work that the college has been doing around their small business boot camp has reached more than just South Wenatchee business owners, and that's been really successful for working with microenterprise. Doing a broad economic development activity level allows for projects to not just be microenterprise. It also allows projects that maybe someone, right, microenterprise is 5 or less employees, including the owner. So that allows that if a business
Invalid
has 7,
selection.
if there's a business that has 7 employees or something and they have some capital needs and they're downtown or they're maybe a older business in the north end, we're able to still support that. So the cultural district is absolutely a piece of that. And I think that has been one that I've, over the last couple of years since that plan was developed, have been intentional about learning when I go to training, learning more about the economic development support for small businesses and microenterprise.
There's a lot of different activities, though, incubator space, partnerships for
Yeah.
support, the cultural district, a small space for a kitchen facility, say at the community center for startup business, cooking, type business. There's all sorts of different options, and they don't have to be huge expense items either.
Right.
So I think it's an exciting option as far as the overall activity.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Jim. I was thinking, we just got notice of the college district thing, and in conversations with the college administration, when they talked about surrounding activities supporting students, assuming that they're going to go back to campus.
Right.
And you have West Side High School, that whole area is within our CDBG eligibility area, so there might even be something that would capture that 18 to, microenterprise, whether it's the food truck court or
Yeah.
something, to begin to help the college district transform not only serving students, but the residents, which may spur more housing for students in that area if it's supportive.
Yeah.
And one thing to keep in mind too that I think we've been trying to be more intentional about is that even though we have a target area for CDBG, the entire city is eligible. So as long as the project pencils out in terms of eligibility and who it's serving, the project can happen anywhere in the community, and that target area was done through the city, right? So it's not something that HUD gives to us. So we're able to adjust that, and we're also able to look outside of that target area for project opportunities.
I guess on the flip side, what I remember from Mr. Stahlheim's letter, that there were also some activities that sounded intriguing, but I think we were kind of cool about in terms of our ability to,
In terms of our
of
entitlement,
really being able to
yeah, we
implement
don't
them
have a
with the
lot
lit-
of funding
yeah.
with our entitlement. If we did look at establishing a home consortium or looking at pre-award costs or the Section 108 loan, those would actually open up those some additional options. But in terms of just utilizing our entitlement, if we don't become creative or really intentionally leverage our funding, some of the ones that would be really nice are a little bit out of reach for our size. Yeah. But not impossible.
No, not impossible, just at this point in time,
Correct.
we
Yeah.
haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
The other second question, and I'm done, is on your list there was, or in the list of things, there was housing rehabilitation. And I was really disappointed, and I understand the reason why we stopped that, but I thought that was probably one of the best expenditures of money we had was helping people to upgrade or, keeping housing stock viable rather than, just letting it deteriorate. Have things changed to any degree to where we might be able to reconsider that housing rehab? I know the lead paint thing was what basically killed it.
Yeah,
but-
the lead paint makes it really hard.
and that still kills it.
It still does, yeah. The same regulations surrounding lead paint
Yeah.
exist. 2 thoughts, though. The rehab, that's definitely still a lesson. We are actually getting, the last maybe 3 years, a significant amount of program income from those because of the market. Many people are choosing to sell. So that's actually really benefited our program. One option that we can look at is into working with developers that want to invest in the affordable housing market for those that might be lower moderate income, because we can use that same concept on a multifamily scale. So that's one to also think about, that if they're able to come in and either support maybe turning a single family into a duplex or a multi-unit or something like that, we're able to support that, and that can still maintain the housing stock that we have and or add units, and just be a little bit more creative and not put a lien or an interest or a payback requirement on a deed for a single family. So there's still creative ways that we can maintain or improve the housing stock that we have for lower income residents.
The potential interest in that or some other housing type function, this activity listing gives you the option.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't require you to do it, but it gives you on an annual basis the option to. And then if you have some specific direction and goals and objectives, you can provide that through this process.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for reading it.
Any other questions for Brooklyn or Glenn on this? If not, you'll just move ahead with your planning group, and we'll see you again when?
I don't know how to get back to my PowerPoint. Thanks. You're the best. Can you go to the last slide? Yeah, we're fighting with the mouse. So the timeline is, oh geez, I'll just talk. December work session with the Planning Commission.
Okay.
We'll be going over a pretty fair amount of the plan with them there. We'll be doing community engagement and feedback December to March, with probably another work session with you guys, or it'll help you guys view the plan prior to that final adoption day at the end of March. That will also be a public hearing date, so we'll work in another day. And then just if anyone is interested in participating on the advisory group, it's 3 meetings, 1 in December, 1 January, 1 February. So hopefully that will work for 1 or 2 of you. But otherwise, that's
Great.
where we're at.
No action tonight from us, so.
No information.
Thanks, Brooklyn. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is a collective bargaining agreement between the City of Wenatchee and the Wenatchee Police Guild for 2021-2023. So I see Carrie and Chief, and I see Detective Evans in the back representing the Guild. Wave, say hi to everybody.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. For the record, Carrie Page, Director of Human Resources.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Crown, the Chief of Police.
So we're here today to request your authorization for Mayor Kuntz to execute the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Wenatchee and the Wenatchee Police Guild. This bargaining agreement has been mutually agreed upon by both parties and has been approved by the Wenatchee Police Guild members. As provided in the agenda report, essentially, the Guild has recognized that we are in difficult economic times, and they have agreed not to take an increase January 1, 2021. In lieu of this, an increase will occur July 1 of 2021 at 2%. So rounded out, they're getting 1% for the year. There were other minor adjustments to the contract, mostly language cleanup. The only other notable financial impact was an additional $20 per officer increase to equipment cleaning that will occur. And roughly that's about a $9,600 increase. The 1% and that amount are already included in what is being proposed tonight for the budget.
3-year contract with wage openers for the
Oh, yes,
next
thank
two?
you for, yes, thank you, sorry about that. So, yes, 3-year contract, 21 through 23. And then there is a opener where negotiations will start August 1st of 2021. It is a defined opener for wages and longevity. So it's not a complete contract opener, but just a limited opener, which is very reasonable considering economic times.
Yeah, so obviously they've been working at this for a couple of months or so, and
Yeah, I mean, this was a lot of leadership by the Guild, including the Guild President, Detective Evett, and the Guild negotiating team. So there was a lot of back and forth I think we made it in record time with 7 meetings. And there was a lot of discussion, a lot of back and forth, very good communication. I couldn't be prouder of them because they really did recognize that this is a good solution to a bad situation financially for the city and themselves as well, with giving that opener to Article 8, which is longevity and the duration salaries and salary negotiations coming up next year. Yes, it is a bummer to have to be back at the table for everybody involved, but I think that this is a great solution to the situation we're in.
And the Finance Committee heard this earlier today, and I think we're fine with it, so. I mean, they did a great job working on this, so I don't anticipate a ton of questions. Any questions from the council?
Yeah, I guess just a clarification for myself, Steve, on the mandatory training, there's a lot of acronyms there,
Mhm.
and which I'm unfamiliar with, and so I'm assuming I know what a couple of them might be. But at any rate, for all patrol officers, the training in section 5 there,
Mhm.
the DT, does that stand for
It's a tech.
Defensive tactics, yes.
defensive tactics? Okay.
I actually knew that one.
Yeah. I don't see anything in there about de-escalation training and those kinds of things. I know you guys do that or have done it. I'm hoping you still are doing it.
Mhm.
So where does that fall, or under what acronym does that fall?
So you have a great eye for detail. It's actually underneath of the patrol tactics that is involving training for our officers that talk about time, space, cover, and being able to de-escalate individuals that are in either mental health crisis or other violent tendencies. So that is part of that training. Right now, in the last legislative session, 40 hours total is the training. We're responsible for 24 of those hours to internally instruct, but our instructors haven't attended a 40-hour train the trainer instructor course, and now they will be part of a regional training team. So again, finding ways to maximize our budget. We work with our partners in the valley here. We were designated here in Wenatchee as a training center, so we're going to carry out that training. The other one that's down under letter C is VCER training. That is what all of our detectives need to attend. It involves interview and interrogation skills for children specifically. So those are all mandatory. And the flavor of that particular section is these are the trainings that we have to send people to. It's not a want, it's a need.
Yep.
And so we agreed to those terms.
Thank you. That's I don't know how many people I've since all the protests and everything started, calls and emails about, what are we doing, kind of thing, and it's actually quite rewarding to be able to tell people this is what our department has done. It's not what we're going to do, but we are doing this, and at least my sense of it is that it does make a difference, and so yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that because I know that's a question we get asked frequently, and it's nice to be able to tell people that we do it. So
Yes.
thank you.
Any questions for Chief or for Carrie? If not, I would entertain a motion if we had one.
Well, Your Honor, I would make a motion that the council authorize the mayor to execute the attached contract mutually agreed upon by both bargaining teams and approved by the Wenatchee Police Guild.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Cuevas to authorize the mayor's signature on the collective bargaining agreement mutually agreed upon by both bargaining teams and approved by the Wenatchee Police Guild members. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, Detective. Appreciate your work on this. All right. Aaron Kelly, updated lease with, forgot who it's with. Let's start.
Good evening. Here tonight to basically ask for the mayor's signature for a facilities use agreement extension with the Schland Douglas Child Services Association, or Head Start. The property is located at 1305 Kittitas Street, and the current agreement has been in place since 2015. This extension would add additional 5 years, and financially, it actually will be following the same agreement, the original agreement, so that the adjustments would be based off of a CPI going further. Pretty straightforward. We're just recommending that the City Council approve the facility use agreement extension between Chelan Douglas Child Services Association and the City of Wenatchee, and authorize the mayor's signature. Any questions?
We did talk a little bit about Finance Committee today about Head Start's desire to want to own the facility at some point. I guess they're still working on that, so maybe in the next 2-3 years, they might be in a position to purchase the facility from us. But at this point, we still own the dirt and I think a small portion of the building, so.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion for the council to approve the facility use agreement extension between Schland Douglas Child Services Association and the City of Wenatchee, and authorize the mayor's signature on that extension.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Hornby, to approve the facility use agreement extension between the Chelan Douglas Child Service Association and the City of Wenatchee, and authorize the mayor's signature. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Posenjack. Nope. Who is it? No, it is. So,
So you've seen this before. This is for the, let's see here, sorry, let me get through the right page. So this is for the CARES Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG CV amendment. We had previously been before you on this, but we received more money than we had anticipated, than they originally estimated. Originally, the award was $1,182,946. Instead, we received $1,326,557, which was above what we could administratively do. And so we needed to come back before the council based on the Chelan Douglas Homeless Task Force recommendations to enter into contract for the use of these funds. The two areas where the funds would be used at this time would be for severe weather emergency shelters for the People's Foundation and Women's Resource Center. And then actually the third item would be for the use of emergency shelter hotel motel vouchers. And both of these are necessary in order to move forward with our low barrier grant with Commerce. Everything's tied together. So sorry about the second time coming before you on this, but it's good news because we're getting more funds. And then as the task force moves forward with allocations, most likely this spring, the remainder of the funds will be back for you, authorizing that future work. But would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
so where's the People's Foundation going to put their shelter this year?
It's a very good question. Originally, they were looking at the former Lighthouse Soup Kitchen and decided not to go into that facility. They're still looking at the same Apostles Church and working with that church facility. Obviously, with COVID, that complicates both of the severe weather shelters activities. And we're offering them some options as far as ways to clean those facilities, such as at the convention center that council member Harold has mentioned. So trying to see if we can make those work. It's certainly a real important facility to have in the valley. It was very well operated by both entities last year, provided a significant positive service, so we're hopeful that that can still occur. But setting these funds up at least allows them to proceed if those two providers are able to have the churches approve their use.
Thank you. Any other questions for Glenn? This is obviously just the steering committee's recommendations for additional funding, so seems pretty routine to me. No other questions? I entertain a motion. It looks like the motion has just authorized me to enter into some amended grant agreements.
You want two motions or just all once?
Just do one.
Okay. Your Honor, I move to accept the Chelan Douglas Housing Task Force recommendations and authorize the mayor to, number one, enter into an amended agreement to increase funding for the existing CARES Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG-CV, between the Department of Commerce and the City of Wenatchee, and number two, enter into two new ESG-CV sub-grantee agreements with the People's Foundation and the Women's Resource Center for severe weather emergency shelter services as recommended by the Chelan Douglas Homeless Housing Task Force.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Harrell, a second by Councilmember Hornby to adopt the staff's recommendation and accept the Chelan Douglas Homeless Housing Task Force recommendation and authorize the mayor to enter an amended agreement to increase the funding for the existing CARES Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG-CV, between the Department of Commerce and the City of Wenatchee, and enter into two new ESG-CV sub-grantee agreements with the People's Foundation and the Women's Resource Center for severe weather emergency shelter services as recommended by the Chelan Douglas Homeless Housing Task Force. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
I guess now it's time for Brad to do a budget amendment and temporary lending of cash are both action items, and then our public hearing on the 2021 budget. And you can tell it's budget day because he's wearing a tie.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We've got a few items for you this evening. The first item has to do with the current 2020 budget. Per state law, the city spending cannot exceed its legally adopted budget. However, several needs arise during the course of the year that require some budget amendments. Finance Committee has reviewed all of these, and Council approved the first budget amendment in June, and this budget amendment will be the last one for the 2020 budget year. I believe the budget amendments are individually listed, and then Exhibit A shows the total impact of those adjustments to give us our final budget. And we expect that with this, we'll stay under the legally required budget. Any questions?
Yeah, so we've been doing these twice a year now because the auditors got mad about us doing them once a year. So, and most of this is over the expenditure of money, not necessarily revenue increases, but a lot of these have revenue increases associated with them.
Your Honor, I make a motion that the City Council approve ordinance 2020-32, amending the 2020 budget as adopted by ordinance 2019-39 and amended by ordinance 2020-14, revoking, recalling, or decreasing all or a portion of total appropriations provided for entering findings that this ordinance is in the best interest of the city, and requiring that this ordinance be approved by a majority plus one of the entire council.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Harold, to adopt ordinance 2020-32, amending the 2020 budget as adopted by ordinance 2019-39 and previously amended by ordinance 2020-14, revoking, recalling, or decreasing all or a portion of the total appropriations provided for, entering findings that this ordinance is in the best interest of the city, and requiring that this ordinance be approved by a majority plus one of the entire council. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Temporary lending of cash.
Yes, as you all know, the city accounting structure is set up with individual funds for different purposes. State rules say that one fund can't benefit another fund, and from time to time, one fund will go negative cash, and they would consider if they're spending another fund's cash, that's one fund benefiting from another. So the exception of that is that the general fund can loan, the general fund can give money to benefit any of the other city funds. So the state auditors require that we, either by policy or by resolution, and it's been our practice to do this by resolution, have council authorize the general fund to lend money to these other funds in times where their cash dips negative. There's a handful of funds that do this. One good example is the CDBG fund that is grant funded. With most grant programs, you have to spend the money first before you can get reimbursed. So from time to time, that will go negative, and in those times, the general fund automatically, we presume because of this resolution that the general fund is the fund that is making up that difference in balance, not the utility funds. So this is mostly an administrative resolution so that we have all our T's crossed and our I's dotted.
If we adopted this as a policy, would that then make it so you didn't have to do this dance every single year?
I believe so, and I'm hoping that we're going to bring some sort of comprehensive policy update, financial policy update in the coming months, and this may be one thing that I'll try to put in there. So I may run it by the auditors just to make sure that is fine, but I believe if council approves it, kind of a once and for all thing, then we shouldn't have to bring this back every year.
I just remember we've done it every year, either while I was
Yeah.
in council or while I've been mayor, so it's just sort of what you do in your budget meetings, but it's, if it's one thing we don't have to do, then.
And it's not a big deal, and it
No.
is kind of a nice check and balance.
Yeah, no, it is. I don't mind doing it. It's just, I
Yep.
don't want someone to forget about it and we get in trouble or.
Yeah.
Brad's good. He doesn't forget about things, but.
I'm getting older there. There have been times where we've had major projects that we need to lend money from one fund to another, and those ones will continue to come to council. Even though they might technically fall under this resolution, we still will bring those to council just for the major items that need the interfund borrowing.
Brad, how much are we, I mean, that's probably really.
It
question, but
varies.
On average, about how much do we have to do?
I would say probably around between 25, 50,000.
Okay.
I think there may be some months with the CDBG funds where they've had to spend, maybe it gets up to 150,000. But sometimes in a month, it's only a couple thousand.
Okay. I guess the reason I'm asking, I kind of agree with Keith. It's still kind of nice to be able to have kind of a handle on that, and maybe we could do it the way that we do some other things, is to set I mean, you have authorization up to a certain amount that you can spend without coming to council, and maybe that could be set up, set a $200,000 limit or something like that.
But maybe it's also, the other thing is, it's a good thing for, Travis and Jose, who this is the first time they've seen and understand fund accounting, and sometimes some of our funds go negative, but our checkbook's got plenty of money to cover it, and well, it's not necessarily a bad thing to, as councils become new members, and
And also in the monthly financial reports, right before it lists all the different funds of the city, there will be comments and notes about if there is a fund that shows a negative number, where who's making that up, if it's the general fund or an interfund loan. So as you look and see those numbers on that monthly financial report, that's where this plays in with that monthly financial report.
All right, any questions for Brad? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I make a motion, City Council pass Resolution 2020-37, authorizing temporary lending of cash from the general fund to the CDBG Entitlement Fund, Police Station Go Bond Fund, and various other funds as needed in 2021.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Hornby, second by Councilmember Bailey. To pass Resolution 2020-37, authorizing the temporary lending of cash from the general fund to the CDBG Entitlement Fund, the Police Station GO Bond Fund, and various other funds as needed in 2021. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so our next item is a public hearing. For public hearings, we will have a presentation from staff. We will ask questions of staff. We will then turn over any member of the public that would wish to address the council on this item. And after hearing from members of the public, we'll turn it over to the council for any action they may be willing to take. This is regarding the final adoption of the city's 2021 budget. Mr. Posenjack.
Thank you. To tee up the 2021 budget adoption, because it's still early in the evening and I don't want you to have to go home too soon, I thought I'd take a quick look at some of the history. I know we've already talked a lot about the budget. So I believe got the first, we can have some fun with graphs. So the first one I want to look at is revenues and expenses. You thought I was joking.
No, here we go.
You can kind of see back around 2008 to 2012, this is when the last recession occurred. And the blue lines represent the revenues, the orange lines represent the expenses. And the first several years on this chart show kind of where we were. Our revenues were fairly flat for those years. Our expenses were kind of bouncing around a little bit. There were different things that were going on with the PFD and just other ways to manage that recession. But you can see from 2017 to 2013, there was really no growth in the revenues or the expenses where they ended up. They were flat. Then in 2014 to 2019, there was some strong economic growth, and you can see all throughout there where the blue line.
And a small little annexation.
Yes, and you can see the dip there in between 2015 and 2016 where the fire department was annexed.
And the annexation of Old Station.
Yes, and the annexation of Old Station was in that strong sales tax revenue growth going for those couple years as well. Anywhere where that blue line is above that orange line, that is basically cash, net cash to us. And on the next chart, you'll see where that really helped our fund balance grow. Then now brings us to where we're at in 2018 and 2019, you see that expense line shoot up. And that is because the city purposefully increased its expenses for several one-time projects and purchases, because we did have enough in our reserves to be able to take on some one-time projects. But now, as we are sort of hopefully in the middle of this current recession, we're getting back to where we need to get our revenues and expenses back in line. And I think this budget is doing that. And looking at the history, I just kind of bringing us back to some of the history of where the recession was before, what we need to do again. I guess that sort of brings me to the next chart. I've got control now. Cool. Oh, I didn't know that it wasn't. Well, we'll do this.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, you didn't have the years on there, did you? Yeah. All right. So, well, if you're real curious, those are the years I was talking about. But that's all history. So looking at so this is the fund balance. This is the cash balance that we have roughly. It's the cash balance we have on hand. Going back to those same years, and now that you can see the years on them, The recession that hit in 2008 and going for those next few years, our cash balance was around the 3 million range, and we did not have a rainy day fund at that point in time. So we didn't have a whole lot of room to react. And as the revenues fell, the expenses had to be cut as well because we did not have room to react. Got down to a low point of 2.1 million, and then in 2012, some solid financial management practices were implemented, and of course, there was the annexation of Old Station and just general economic growth that occurred for many years and grew that cash balance up to that 9 million level. And that was when the decisions were made to do some of those one-time projects. And so that's why you see that the fund balance starting to go back down a little bit, because there was decisions were made to spend some of that down to get some projects done that had been put off for quite a few years because of the recession. And so now where our goal is kind of around the $7.5 million range. And again, we have the $7.5 million, plus we have a 1.5 million rainy day fund on top of that. So when you look at where we are today, going into this recession, that who knows how long it'll last or what it's going to look like, and we compare where we are today with where we were 14 years ago, 13 years ago. Again, I'm not good with numbers. If you go back to 13 years ago, where we were compared to today, we are so much better positioned, which is why when we get into looking at the 2021 budget, I am completely comfortable adopting a budget that ends up spending down some of our reserves for 2021 because we're in a good spot now, and it's not because of our cash position that we have. We do have those reserves that we can spend down some of them for a year or two, rather than making drastic budget reductions at this point. So all that to say, we've got the 2021 budget before you with ordinance 2020-31. Finances Committee has gone through all the ins and outs and the details of this. We've also discussed this a couple times here at City Council, including last week. So unless you have any other questions for me?
I'll add just my standard, obviously, we got an agreement with the police guild, so that is done, and those numbers are consistent with what we budgeted. Still working on the ASME contract. I'm confident we'll get to a contract that's consistent with what we've got in the budget. We have a budget for the jail number. We still don't have an agreement with the jail in terms of the county for the housing of our inmates. That is a work in process, not exactly sure how that's going to end. And then there's money in there for Rivercom, which is the higher end of the number for our call volume. It's what they budgeted. Whether or not we can convince them to bring that down a little bit, we'll see. But I think overall, it's well within what we've talked about in terms of any of those sorts of outstanding items that we haven't quite locked in yet. So I think it's about as good as we can get. Really no net new employees, a little bit in utilities, I think. And again, we haven't replaced Steve King's position at this point, just trying to execute all the stuff he left with us. So I haven't found the need to repurpose that position yet. Doesn't mean we won't in the future, but right now we don't believe it's needed. And so the chief's got an officer. He's too short of what's budgeted. He has authority to go do one more with me, and then he's got to come ask for the second one, but there's some room in there for him to continue to add. They've got their special services division up and operating, and it's going to do remarkable good things for us in terms of their ability to jump on issues that come up quickly. So I'm super excited for that. So beyond those items that are still outstanding, again, I will tell you that I think the numbers we have in here are within what we would expect to do for all of those other sort of outstanding items. So I think we're in about as good a shape as we can be. It's nice to have a savings account to burn if we need to, and maybe we're lucky and sales tax will come in a little higher than we thought, and they won't quite spend all of their budgets, and it'll be maybe closer to break even than we budgeted. But I think for budgeting purposes, this is about as good as there was a time that I don't think we were going to see a $450,000 negative. With 2 months of sales tax and the minus 20% this year, it sort of surprises me that we have bounced back quite as good as we have.
Yep. And I should have mentioned for any of the public, the budget document currently is on the city calendar as far as for the public being able to access it. It's on the city calendar under the agenda, right under the agenda packet, I believe. And after adoption, it will be on our financial report page of the city's website.
And one of the reasons we adopt our budget just a little bit maybe sooner than many others is this is what gives staff the ability to hire those folks that we put in the budget if they're new. So Rob will get the chance to get started on his new budgeted person. And so I think it gives them a head start that, it takes a couple months to get someone hired and it go quickly. So any questions of Brad before I turn it over to any member of the members of the audience that wish to address the council?
So I see quite a few capital projects in here still, and all those are budgeted for. If worst case, things didn't look as good or contract signing doesn't do as good, I mean, these are budgeted, but there's no absolute must move forward on any of these projects with the exception of a few, like the signal. I know we've got to get that done at McKittrick Street, but
Yeah, so I
the
think.
north development
Yeah.
and
What I would say, by adopting the budget, you're giving the mayor and staff the authority to spend all that. But as you know, we keep track with the Public Works Committee and the Finance Committee regularly, and if things start slowing down, those conversations will continue. And we have the ability to slow down on some of these projects if need be. So we're always sort of watching. I mean, I walk into Brad's office, when are we getting sales tax? When are we getting sales tax? So we monitor those things very closely. We monitor them on almost a business by business to look for trends. You want to tell them the $50,000 story from January? You remember that one? So we got a January sales tax, and Brad said we were down 6% from last year. I said, no, we're not. I know. You would know if we were down. He goes, no, we're down. Look, the numbers. No, we're not down. And the very last item on our sales tax report, which is 30 pages,
Yeah.
was a minus
Yeah,
50,
right.
and that was from the previous December's adjustment. If you put it back in December, we were break even. So we monitor it
Yep.
pretty closely in terms of understanding and what we see with our own eyes. And so I think we do a pretty good job of staying on top of that. So we'll be following that stuff really closely.
Yeah. And
I think, none of us know what this year is going to bring. None of
No.
us expected what we got this year, and we just need to be keeping an eye on what you're doing. And I appreciate all your hard work in there.
absolutely. And whether it's the general fund or whether it's the street funds or the utility funds, besides the budget, they also have their own cash
Right.
reserves that they've got to manage. And so each department is monitoring their funds. And so if the recession got worse and our utility funds were reduced, then absolutely things are going to have to adjust. And I'm working with all the directors here has been great and really easy when it comes to putting the budget together. And so I've got confidence that when if something like that ends up happening, that
Yeah,
the
I
directors
think if
are.
we've learned anything, that when you saw the shutdown, I mean, we now know what shutdown means to our sales tax, 20%. And when things get back to about sort of at least being able to move about, we'll jump right back to close to even, but in the general area. So I think if we see a shutdown, I think we'll immediately go 20%, and we'll be able to sort of judge, I think, how that. I sense there's pent-up demand in the economy. I think there's, just by watching, I think there's cash still ready to be spent. Just what I'm hearing from business people in the community. So if you're selling the little personal watercraft sort of things in the summer, once things got normal, they sold out. I went in to buy one. They don't have any inventory. When are you going to get inventory next year? How many did you order for next year? 36? I've already sold 18 of them. So next year's, right, next May, the guy's selling 18 of those things, right? That to me means there's pent-up demand in the economy for money to spend when things get to a point when they're ready to spend, right? Go try to buy a 3/4 ton pickup at any of the car dealers right now, or at least at Sangster. You can't, they don't have any. I'll get some next year, but they don't have, there's none. Behind. So there's demand that if you get a slowdown, if it's not awful, when we come back, I'm confident in, and as we talked about at finance today, construction of single-family residences in this valley is important to the city. And we now have 10 years of building lots ready to come. And there's building going on, and that helps with those that sell appliances and building products and those sorts of things. And we happen to have two of those major retailers in our city. And people are coming over from the other side. Talked with a industrial developer today who's got 4 businesses moving from Seattle to Wenatchee in the next 6 months, coming into an industrial building that he's remodeling. Trying to get the heck out of whatever that is and coming this way. So I think, again, these are just anecdotal stories that when I hear them, I put them into, okay, that means we're, right? Minus a complete shutdown, which is possible again, but I think we know what that does. I think we now have a base for what that would look like, right? He had his base, right? And he was saying minus 15%, that was your number, right?
Yeah.
And we went over that twice, and then we went sort of back up to normal. So I sort of think we're going to be fine, minus the big jumps. But that's just one man's sort of anecdotal what I'm hearing by wandering around the community.
Brad,
Yeah, go ahead.
excuse me, just one question. And, we've seen the sales tax basically, at least to me, do better than what I kind of feared was going to do.
Yeah.
What about property taxes? Is this COVID thing in terms of collections, the Chelan County collections, obviously if they don't collect it, we don't get it.
From what I can tell, we're actually collecting the county treasurer is collecting our property taxes at a faster pace than they collected it and remitted it to us last year. So on pace, when I was looking at the monthly financial report we sent out today, I want to say that it was 5%. We had 5% more in ratio to the budget than we did last year at October. So
Okay.
it doesn't seem to really be affecting it
Okay.
as far as we can tell.
The places we see it, hotel motel tax, right? But that's to be expected. When we first looked at it, we said, 80% reduction in hotel motel tax? I think the average for the year now is probably in the 40% reduction, probably half of what we thought. The dollar per night is 33% lower than budgeted, right? So we got, the room rates are coming down, right? Because of the gas tax. Obviously, people weren't driving as much. So the places you would think, real estate excise tax, those places where transactions, those, you just go, okay, but most of those are set aside for separate funds, right? And again, I think we've sort of weathered what that might look like. Again, I think Keith's right. There could be another downturn. I don't know what that's going to look like. The governor said something tonight. I was told he was just going to slap our hands and tell us to behave ourselves before he has to shut us down again. So, I think I think you can just sort of see okay, yep, I would expect that. But I think our expectations for really bad didn't turn out quite as bad. And I think some of it, I think the weekends, Linda, I think the weekends were fairly full on the hotels. And then
Yes,
we have
they're doing, on the weekends are doing really well, and I think attribute that to the fact that people are just tired of being locked down and they want to get out and do something.
Yeah.
So they're coming.
I think during the week, we have a lot of contractors that are staying. There's some big, if you're a Spokane contractor and you're here and there's one building the college and building the fire in the hotel, those aren't local people. And so they're coming in, staying during the week and heading home. So I think you're seeing not quite as bad as maybe we had thought. And then for us next year, the PUD is not going to not build they said they'll be in for $65 million next year on their new facility. out of 140 or like 110 million that's subject to sales tax. So if you've been out there, they're putting pilings in and I don't think they're going to stop. Now, we've got that in our one-time, and we have one-time expenses, so we can always slow down some of those one-time expenses if we need to help sort of offset. All right, let me turn it over. Any members of the audience wish to address the council on this public hearing item? Hearing none, I guess I'll turn it over to the council for any action they may be willing to take.
Well, Your Honor, I would move that the city council approve ordinance 2020-31, adopting the final budget for the city of Wenatchee for fiscal year 2021.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Cuevas, to approve ordinance 2020-31, adopting the final budget for the city of Wenatchee for the fiscal year 2021. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Brad, thanks for your work on the budget. Thanks
Yes,
for
thank you,
being our
Brad.
finance director. I've got great confidence in you and your team and all the department heads and working together to get us to a point where we've got a budget, and it's one that we can work with. So thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you very much as well.
Always love to have our finance director wearing a mask.
Yeah, we run out of money, we just send him out to rob a bank.
Yeah. A mask and a tie, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a lot of things to add. I will tell you that, we've talked a little bit about partnering with the Chelan County PUD for some improvements to the park system. Laura and I did walk with Steve Wright and Justin and I believe an architect, a landscape park design person from the Portland area that I think is their choice to work with stuff. So we don't have an agreement with them. We just walked the little park area with them, and I think that they've got some good ideas, and we'll sort of see how that's going. I did spend a little bit of time. I met with Jerry Crawford last week to talk about mutual issues between the two cities, including the jail and other issues. I did meet with the Rivercom people. I will be sitting in on the Rivercom board meeting next week, and so I did have a meeting with Misty and Kevin Overbay and Stacy, their accounting person. So I did that as well. Staff and I, we've sat and discussed the issues of the jail in the last little bit. So I did meet with Commissioner Boogert yesterday and just had conversations, no sort of agreements, but we're just trying to keep the conversations open and going in a way that are positive. Laura, anything, you hate it when I ask you, but is there anything that I'm missing? Council members? Anything going on in your stuff?
Pretty quiet at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. I do think, and I'll mention this to Linda, I do think we're going to get a request from Coast Hotels to help with some of the utility bills at the convention center. The convention center obviously has not been open. Obviously, the hotel has struggled. We may be using some of our CARES funding to help augment some of that. So Laura and I have had some discussions. I don't know if we'll need council agreement on that or if my emergency powers can do that, but at some point, we'll let you know what we decide to do. But it certainly seems reasonable to help. The convention center has not been open in a long, long time, and our contract with the coast requires them to pay all the utility bills, and seems a little disingenuous of us to partner with them and have them keep the heat and the lights on and the toilets flushing and all that with nobody in there. So seemed to be a reasonable request, so I think we're looking at that.
Thank you.
I don't have anything else. Council members, nothing, so we're not meeting for the next couple of weeks. We'll meet on the 3rd and the 10th. We're trying to split those into 2 even meetings. So, and then I think if all works out well, our last meeting will be the 10th.
So we don't meet next week.
Don't meet next Thursday,
Thanksgiving.
December 3rd. Yep, you guys get Thanksgiving off, next week off. We'll meet on the 3rd and the 10th. We'll have most of our year-end sort of things split between those 2 meetings, the standard. We've got a contract with the chamber that I think we're just wrapping up. So we'll have that, number of other stuff that Laura's got for us, sort of year-end contracts and things. And I think we'll should be done on the 10th. And, you know, this could, if the governor shuts things down, this could get interesting. So I'm just going to have Thanksgiving at home with my wife and my stepdaughter. So
The report was, yeah, that he did talk about our situation, and he's working with industry groups. We may have things going on next week.
Yep.
So everyone run out and buy bath tissue and paper towel.
Mark said
And
he
water.
Mark said he went to Costco and said there's a run on it again.
Yeah.
Was it Costco or Fred
my
Meyer?
God.
Costco was out.
It's going right
Yeah.
Yeah.
now.
And water.
Our tap water is amazing.
Go figure. Water.
Yeah, the water out of the tap probably safer than the
Yeah.
stuff in the
I'm going to
body.
go home and check and see if I can have a deep pee.
Well,
All right,
speaking
everybody.
of, speaking of year end,
Yeah.
I know last year we asked staff to try and get us our packets early.
Mhm.
And I, for one, am enjoying that, but I
Good.
wanted to make sure it was working well for staff, and if anybody had any comments, if
So
we
I
can
can look at
continue to do
Tammy
that.
and Anna, or Laura, what are we thinking?
Doing okay with that? Okay, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate
Yeah.
that. That
Thank
does,
you.
helps.
We appreciate it.
Yeah,
especially when we have big meetings. So,
Thank you.
good.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
We've managed to jump in that pretty good, so. Looking good.
Okay.
All right, thanks, everybody. We're adjourned.
Good.